Hello, everyone. It's Dr. Tamar Beckett with Your Caring Docs, and this is our Docs Who Care show. Yes. So I'm super excited. Today I have a couple on, right? So we have Dr. George Naum and his lovely wife, Vanessa Naum. I'm going to bring them in Your Caring Docs fashion. You know, we can't just throw them on just like that because they're our guests and everybody gets the royal treatment when you come here on our lovely show, right? So Dr. George Naum, aka Jeep, if you're looking there, you're like, who's that? Well, that's him right there. So he is a graduate of the West Virginia School of Osteopathic Medicine, right? He practices urgent care and family medicine. He's been doing that for over 25 years. That's right. Yeah. Also a marriage coach for almost 25 years too. Mm-hmm. Co-founder of Best Friends Again, with who? None only his bestest friend right there, tapping her shoulder, the wonderful Mrs. Vanessa Naum, who is an accountant, and they've been married for over 30 years. So they're bringing all of that to their Best Friends Again coaching program, where they help physicians reignite their marriage through customized approach based on their physician's needs and your physician's family needs, right? Not only that, they are also co-authors of this wonderful book called What's Forever For. We're going to get into all of that. So I would love for you guys to welcome to our Docs Who Care show, the one and only Dr. Jeep Naum and Mrs. Vanessa Naum.
Thank you so much. So excited to be here with you.
Thank you.
You know, Dr. Tamara, we love what you do, and we're just so honored that you've let us be a part of this.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I love what you do too, because we need to keep these marriages sacred and together, right?
Amen.
Especially with the physician families. It is a challenge. But before we go and dig all into that, let's start to break away at what made Jeep decide to be a doctor and go into medicine. So give us that story. What made you become a doctor, Dr. Naum?
Well, my dad was a family practitioner, and by the time he had retired, it was he was in practice for 50 years.
Oh, wow.
So when I was a young boy, probably around the age of 5, Dad was the kind of family doc that people would come to the house. Usually in the evening, knock on the door. He would bring them into the living room. And I watched this over a period of time and watched how the patients reacted with him and how they, he always had his arm around them. And I looked and I said, this is what I want to do.
Oh, wonderful. Wow.
Yeah, there wasn't anything else really that I ever even thought about except for medicine.
I think when you think back to that, the connection, and you looked at the impact and the connection that was made with your dad and his patients, and it made an impact on you because you decided that, hey, I'm going to go on this path and be a doctor. So now you're on this path, you're doing medical school. And then we have this lovely Miss Vanessa. So go ahead. Tell me, when did you guys unite? When did you guys meet?
I was previously married before I met Dr. Jeep. And that marriage was fraught with problems such as, addiction for one. And I'd liken it to, I could lead that horse to water, but I could not make him drink. Yes. So I had to sit back and think, what do I really want? What do I really need? What type of person do I need to meet my capacity for love? Because it was big. And so I relocated to Pittsburgh, was there for a while. Then I met him and thought, wow, when you just check off all the boxes. The boxes. Yes. Although I was timid and I was shy and, I'm really going over those boxes because I don't want to enter another mistake.
Right. Did you start adding more boxes and saying, wait, this can't be, let me add another box? And
I probably had more boxes. 4 boxes. Yeah, because I knew what to expect and I knew what I wanted and I was going to be choosy. But the biggest thing was that he wanted to have a relationship and was willing to work at it with me, to get to understand me, know what my needs and wants were. And it was a mutual collaboration, because then, in that exchange and dialogue, I got to understand what his needs and wants were. So
Absolutely.
That is magic stuff.
Absolutely. So now, you guys have been there and you're married, and you have been helping you guys together as a couple, other couples for the last almost 25 years. So tell us, when did you start looking and saying, wait, hey, I have something here. Let me start helping those around me to really enjoy this sacred thing called marriage?
Absolutely.
I'll start.
Sorry.
Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely. See, that's how this thing goes. So I'm like, oh,
well,
wait.
I told you what a great doctor my dad was, and how I wanted to. That's how I got into medicine. However, dysfunctional marriage, and narcissistic behavior. Unfortunately, my mom was kind of devalued in the relationship, and so although I wanted to be a doctor, and that never wavered. The other thing that I also knew that I wanted to do was be married.
Yeah.
And I was also determined that when I was able, that the things that I was seeing would not happen, and I would know what to do to prevent them. And that's how we got started.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah, it was so awesome.
Yeah. As I really think about, and what's interesting about what you're saying right there, both of you together, from the inside perspective as a physician, and then from the spouse's perspective. A lot of people from the outside, when they see physicians, a lot of times they don't realize, like, even some physicians, they have great relationships with their patients, but then they're having broken relationships at home, right? For whatever reason. So I love that when you looked at your dad, you were able to notice both parts and to recognize what part you wanted to emulate and what part you knew you did not want to emulate.
Yes.
And to your point, my first husband was exactly like my father, who I did not want, I did not want to marry a carbon copy of my father. But, it took going through that experience and learning more about myself. I was very, very young, 21, too young, and just needed to learn and grow.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So you saw these behaviors, both of you guys, and people in your lives who were closest to you. And then you started to recognize, well, there's a problem. We'll start off with you, Vanessa. When did you recognize that there was a problem in the prior relationship, and how you knew that, okay, well, this is definitely something that I don't want to emulate? And then the same thing with you, Jeep, afterwards. When did you start noticing this in your dad? Like, wait a minute. So we'll start off with you, Vanessa.
Yeah, this is really interesting, because I was having cold feet up through like several months before the wedding. But vulnerability moment here, I was too afraid to call it off.
And that happened.
I thought, yes. And I thought, well, if it doesn't work out, I'll just get divorced, knowing absolutely nothing about how traumatic that experience is.
Wow.
And it impacted me for years, and in ways that I brought into our relationship. Thankfully enough, was able to talk about that, communicate that with him. So, we worked around that. But I just want to give credence to the fact that if anyone out there is really in their gut is saying something's just not quite right here,
yes,
save yourself the trauma, because the trauma is real.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You're right. and then, all right, so we'll have you, Jeep, tell us about it. And then I'll pair this back to a prior interview that I had with a physician who, said the same. She was married to a narcissist. And so it all ties into what we're talking about, relationships, and how important it is for us to recognize the different levels and types of relationships that we're in so that we can have the best outcome, like you said, Vanessa, because it is traumatic going through this. It takes a while to repair yourself from the inside out.
It does. It took a long time.
Yeah. Alrighty. So when did you start noticing this, Dr. Naum, in your dad? And you're like, well, that relationship's a little different than what I would hope.
Well, you mentioned something before about, how physicians can go and treat their patients and be one way and be very understanding, be very compassionate, be very kind. And then home is a completely different story. Well, that was my dad. Because I would, like I said, I'd see how he would treat patients, and then how he would treat my mom by devaluing her contribution to the house, saying basically that, well, yes, you raise 5 kids, and yes, you take care of the house. Yes, you do the shopping, but it's not important as important as what I do. And arguments would ensue.
Yeah.
And she was really never given an adequate say, or would be yelled down to the point where, what's the use for me to talk? You're always going to get your way. You're not going to listen to anything that I'm going to say. And I saw this, and I just felt, I felt really horrible. And I just was like, this is not right. Now, at the time, I didn't have the guts to bring it up to my dad and say, Dad, you're not treating Mom right. We could all see it, not just me, but my 2 brothers and sisters. And it just,
kids know.
Yeah, kids know. Don't think they don't. They really do. And all 5 of us did. And so I saw this. I saw it get progressively worse as time went by into my teenage years, and even into college, where they had a separation. And I'm like, no, was more convinced the longer time went on that this didn't have to happen. And if I saw that it was happening in a couple, I knew what we were going to do, what I was going to do, just off it.
Wonderful, wonderful. Like you said, kids know, and you had that intuitive, and then you had the examples in front of you. And at that point now, when you are helping and counseling the other physician couples, you'll notice the signs, because you both have had the experience. So even that, with Vanessa, your prior marriage, with it not working out, you recognize the signs that you can sit and speak to somebody heart to heart.
Yes.
And provide the coaching and the counseling to them. So you guys have been doing that. You started doing that for almost 25 years.
Yes.
And then you guys wrote a book.
Yes.
And I'm hearing all these wonderful, I read the reviews on the book.
Yes.
Shameless plug.
Okay, so now tell us about what brought on the thought that, hey, I'm going to write this book. And while we're saying that, we have to say hi to Dr. Nupi Aurora, who's saying hello to you guys all the way from the UK.
Awesome.
Yeah, she's jumping on and listening. So tell us all about this book. What made you decide, you know what, let me put all of this distilled wisdom in this book?
Well, early on, actually, before we got married, we worked on premarital planning. And so we talked through some issues that were hard. And then we contributed in the volunteer realm for close to 25 years, coaching couples. And that's what we do. We coach couples, and we're different in that the coachee doesn't sit in front of us and spill out their guts to us. And it's not a power struggle. He said, she said, and sorting through that. It's not like that at all. What we do is we teach a form of communication, and we use ourselves as examples. We are an open book. We are not afraid to share anything. In fact, we've been through some things that are absolutely horrendous that we share with our clients, and we use ourselves as the example. So if they want to keep their issues confidential, they can ask us questions. We'll be able to understand what they're talking about and then model that behavior, healthy behavior to them, as well as teaching them. So it's more educational. I'd like to say it's CME, which is continual marriage education.
Yes.
And yeah.
And
he's itching to talk right now.
You can sense it.
Yeah, I
can. I've done a lot of. I've had in family practices. You probably know, Dr. Tamara, that you do a lot of counseling. You do a lot of it. People come to you. Sometimes they would rather come to you because they trust you. You build a relationship with them rather than go to somebody and establish one. So I did a lot of that, and I did that over a lot of years. And a friend of mine said, you really ought to write a book. And I'm thinking, well, I really never gave it a thought, but I think you're right. So I sat down and wrote the book in the view of marriages from 3 different time periods, and wrote tools that we have used, that we have learned in our training, and then what we have learned and experienced while we were married. And so those were put in there, and I wrote it in the way that I was acting like I was sitting there and talking to a patient. So it doesn't matter your socioeconomic background, your education. This is an understandable book, and anybody that reads it is going to at least take something away from it. And that's what I was shooting for.
Wonderful, wonderful. Because one of the reviewers on who wrote about the book, they said that they love that you essentially have a couples, I guess it was 3 couples.
Yes.
Three couples. And so when you're saying through different time periods, are we talking about newly married, been mid,
Great question. We're talking about marriage through the decades. So we early 1900s, how the woman and the men, and how marriage was looked at, and then 50s, 60s, and then current times.
Okay, wonderful, wonderful. Because I wanted to ensure that we really clarified that, because that's really an important aspect of how the roles have changed. And how, especially when we're looking at the gender roles. And as Dr. Naum expressed, the roles of a stay-at-home mom is working almost 3 times as much as and we can respect that about the roles that they're playing, in not just that they're raising the next generation.
Absolutely. And really the modeling that was going on in that early generation and how that is passed on to the next and passed on to the next. I have seen signs of Jeep's father's behavior in him, but when I recognize it, then we discuss it. Because sometimes we act a certain way. We're not really conscious or aware of where that's coming from or why we said that, but to stop and then just to become aware is huge.
And the good thing about that, Dr. Tamara, is that Vanessa has the courage to confront me and say, sometimes it's like, you're acting like your dad. And so I'll sit there.
After so many years, I can be blunt like that.
So I'll sit there and think, and I'm like, boy, you're right. Because sometimes, no matter how much you say, I'm not going to be that way, when you're raised in an atmosphere like that, somehow
it's caught.
It carries over. But I know when she brings it to my attention and
Mm-hmm.
I self-reflect, it's like,
Yes.
yeah, you're right. I'm
Mm-hmm.
sorry. Let's move on. I'm going to do better.
And vice versa,
Yeah.
myself as well.
I love it. And with all of this wisdom, that you're bringing it in stories, because we know that
Yes.
that's how people really learn the most. They learn it through stories. And these stories, they can highlight behaviors that they might notice within themselves, and like,
Yes.
oh, well, I guess I did think this way. But then not only just the stories, but you're also highlighting, hey, when you're thinking this way, here are some realistic approaches to your behavior that you can help, so that you can keep that marriage a healthy marriage. Now,
Yes.
as we're moving on, right? You've done the book, and then we're also having this wonderful program, because
Yes.
Best Friends Forever. All right. So we have the Best Friends Forever. Go tell us more about that wonderful program that you guys built too.
Okay, so our program is 90 days to clarity and connection, because what we've found, and also what we've experienced in our own life, and working a practice together. Several years ago, we were in practice together and spent 10 years practicing together. Absolutely loved it, but there are stressors that come from that.
Yes.
Life wasn't all roses and sunshine, so to speak.
Absolutely.
So we learned tips and tricks to kind of navigate that space. So I just forgot so the program. Sorry, I forgot my train of thought.
That's okay, because I was going to ask you some more questions, especially because this program is really is geared towards physicians. So as I'm listening to you even describe, some of the elements of the program, you guys were working together in a practice that you're building together. So
Yes.
it's not just we're around each other all the time. No, it's not just that. If you really think about the elements of a practice, you have to do business, you have to do marketing, and you're still taking care of the patients, and you still have to pay the bills, and and you still have the family. So that is like there's so many dynamics within that to try to juggle. So I can see how a program like this will really help other physician couples out there.
And I'll give you a short story. One of the biggest things that we have found in our coaching is the inability of physicians to disconnect from work and reconnect at home. And so I use myself as an example. As Vanessa said, she was, we made a decision early on that she was going to manage the practice, in which she did a phenomenal job. And so she was doing that, and she would work, by that time, I think we had one with another child on the way. And so she would work until like 4:00, would go to daycare to pick up our kids, and then she would go home, and then she would start doing things at home. So I would come home, oftentimes, bad day, busy day,
rounding at 5 hospitals after seeing day patients.
We would never, as you never know, occasionally, especially these days, what's going to come up during the course of a day. But so I would be numb walking through the door, and all I wanted to do was decompress. So I would go to a chair and I would watch TV, whatever was on. And so I'm oblivious to what's going on. And she's behind me. Kids are pawing at her. She's trying to make dinner, and, doing all this. And, I'm not doing anything to help her. So I let her go from there.
After a period of time, resentment's building.
Absolutely.
I'm getting super angry. We both agreed that we would have children and we would raise them together, but reality wasn't matching our ideals or the plans that we had made for how this, because you're always having to tweak your reality or tweak your plan based on reality.
Absolutely.
Yes. And so I would mention it to him, but this is where a little bit of his dad came through. He felt that because he was the physician and because he was doing really important things, that he deserved the time off. And so it's about discussing, absolutely, I'm not going to take that away from you. You absolutely deserve to have the time off. But all hell's breaking loose in the background, and I'm
behind us, right?
Yeah, I'm like, help. And it took a while, and finally just said, how can we make this work? Because clearly this isn't working. It's interrupting our connection with each other. Resentment is there, and resentment is just going to continue to build. And we use the analysis of a road until we start splitting, driving down separate roads, and we're roommates instead of married people.
Which you never want to be.
Correct.
No, absolutely not.
And so she had the courage to bring that up to me, like she's done with other times when I've slipped. And not only by bringing that up to me, was it a wake-up call for me to be more engaged in my children's lives? And I get a tingle down the back of my back, because had she not have done that, I would have missed out on things like bedtime stories and baths and rocks in the rocking chair, all of things that I hold so dear today.
All those beautiful memories.
And that's because of her.
And actually what he missed as a child, because mom did all of that, dad did none of it. So I knew that he was repeating that behavior. And I knew that he just didn't know different. So I had to bring it up in a non-threatening way. And it's something that we just had to adjust our path and figure out how we could do it together. And what we really wanted.
You're giving me chills, and I'll tell you why. Because the very thing that Dr. Naum was trying to avoid, the thing that he saw that he did not like, it just shows us how easily it is for us to fall into that same pattern. If we don't have someone who loves us enough to, and has the courage to let us know that we're going into that pattern, and then for us also to be open enough to receive that information, to do the reflection, and then to act on it. Because you said, had you not, had Vanessa not spoken to you about it, you'd be down that same road that you didn't like and that you didn't see. And had you not been receptive enough to hold on to that information, to really do some introspection and say, wow, I am going down that same road. All those lovely memories that you just talked about, you would not have had. So it's kind of like you guys were able to save each other.
That's a beautiful way of saying it. We would just catch and save each other along the way, using the tips and tools that we were taught. We would use them, and they work. And that is what we teach in our program.
And I was wanting to listen because there's nobody that I love more. And I had, I didn't get married till I was 33 because of training and everything. And she was very well worth the wait. And so I wasn't going to be pig-headed and stubborn and blow something that I had waited my entire life for. And so we had talked a lot about that before we even got married. And so when I would slip, I'm like, oh, I don't want this to come between us. And so sometimes it took a little bit of time, but there was always a breakthrough.
Wonderful. And the thing is too, with all of those slips that you've had, you've now gained experience that you're now able to use to help others who might be slipping, and others who might not be as receptive to their spouse telling them, or or we don't want to say tell, because nobody likes to be told anything.
Exactly.
But to provide that info to them. So this is wonderful. We have some people in the chat here who are saying that, you know, they are really, really, really loving it. So you're getting some loves here
Awesome.
again.
Oh, awesome.
Yes.
Wow.
Thank you.
Wow.
And there's-
Thank you very much.
Oh, absolutely. And then we also have here, you know, Vanessa Turner that said, yep, when you're talking about talking to each other and, you know, calling each other out in order to really build a better union and to make each other better, you know.
Yes.
And then
And
some
you're
says that they've done the same 12 years ago.
perfect.
Yeah.
Yes.
Go ahead,
Yes.
Vanessa. You're going to tell
Because
me something.
if you're not growing together, you're
Mhm.
growing apart.
Absolutely.
Because life keeps moving. We're never stagnant. So our goal was, okay, we're kind of getting detoured here.
Mhm.
What do we need to do? What's going on right now to get us back on path so we grow together? Because nothing is more precious than our primary relationship together.
Absolutely. I love,
And
love,
each
love.
other.
Yes.
We both feel that way. So it does take two to tango.
All right. Well, now that you're saying that, I do have a question that, you know, I love to ask all of my guests. So we're talking about, you know, relationships and especially during times when it's hard and in times when it's lovely. So what would you say that you two have done? And these questions are, you know, individually. So we'll start with Vanessa for your self-care in your marriage. So what is Vanessa's self-care routine?
Okay, I'll tell you. What comes top of mind is researching travel and researching destinations, researching geography. I can get lost in that, clear to the point of being on Google Earth and zooming right down in on streets.
I love it. So that's just a great way to just clear your mind. So that's releasing all those really relaxing hormones for you and just getting yourself. Alrighty, how about you, Dr. Naum? What's your self-care?
I would say probably a good meal out with Vanessa, you know, and it's a chance for me to get out and relax, eat some good food, have some good conversation with or without friends. You know, there's a time for friends and family, or
And
just the two of us, and it is incredibly recharging.
So if you had to just say what charged you up separate from me.
Separate from you.
Yeah. So what do you do for self-care that I wouldn't be a part of? That it's just you.
Okay, two things. One is I like movies.
Oh,
and
good.
believe it or not, I like rom-coms.
Oh, okay.
And people say to me, "Baby, you're a guy. How do you like rom-coms?" I'm like, I like happy endings.
I do too.
And the other thing, you know, the other thing I like is I'm a big sports fan. We live near Pittsburgh, so you know, I follow all of the local teams in Pittsburgh, and that is, I mean, sometimes it's aggravating, but it's fun, and it's a great form of self-care for me.
Love. Alrighty, so now we talked about two to tango. Alrighty, so this is one of my favorite questions. So I'm going to start off this question. We're going to start it off with Dr. Naum, and then Vanessa, you get to answer this next. If you weren't a doctor, Dr. Naum, what would you be? If you didn't go into medical school and decide to be a doctor, what would you be? I'll give you some of the prior answers that we've had. So we've had some travel journalists. We've had some backup dancers. And these are all doctors. We've had someone urban planning, which I thought was interesting. We've had interior designers. So, but you, tell me, if you weren't a doctor.
When I was growing up, I loved sports, but I wasn't particularly talented in any of them. And so when I was in high school, rather than be a jock and talented enough to play football or basketball or track, I became involved in drama. So I did plays. And school had a variety show, and I did comedy in the variety show. And even though I couldn't sing, I would sing.
I love it.
She's
So you and
laughing.
I are the same. I love it.
So I had a fleeting thought about, boy, would I like to do this? Would I like to go and be in plays and maybe do not stand-up comedy, but be in things in types of plays that involve comedy? And it was something that I thought about, but it was always medicine. So if medicine hadn't have worked out, I don't know. Maybe I guess I would have given that a try, but
Singing
I'd be looking
lessons.
to do something else.
You didn't.
We have a theater romantic actor who might be able to sing.
Singing lessons.
What is it you say to me? You say, you couldn't carry a tune in a barrel.
I love it. Okay, Vanessa. Well, we're not going to let you off the hook. So if you weren't an accountant extraordinaire, managing and helping building businesses, beautiful, able to keep a wonderful marriage together for 31 lovely years, and also a co-author, what would you be? See, I took all of that out. See, I took all, notice I got all of that out.
And that's such an easy question for me, because I was on the path of classical musician with piano, voice, organ, flute. And I studied at a fine arts school for women, and really had like college level courses at a younger age. And I just absolutely love it. And it's so different than accounting, which I love too. It is. Actually, it's numbers. I guess so. It's related that way. But it would definitely have been a life full of music.
And it was one of the things that attracted me to her, because she sang at a couple of weddings that I went, and I'm like, wow. And since we've been married, there's been times that she has sung, and and thankfully our daughter has gotten that from her, and just has the most angelic voice that you sit there and you listen and you want to cry because it's so beautiful.
Now that's self-care too, listening to that.
Oh yeah.
I love
absolutely.
it.
But we're biased. We're biased.
That's what you're supposed to do. That's what parents do. How else am I going to feel like I'm the best?
Right. Yeah.
I love this. So we have someone who is a classical trained, some with a lot of natural talent for singing. And then the other stage wants to be able to sing. And then they've merged together. And thank God, one of the kids.
I never thought about that before. Yeah. There's some insight there.
I'll tell you a story, Dr. Tamara. Vanessa was giving me some coaching, and she had a friend who said, I want both of you guys to come to my wedding and sing. All right. And so we love Phantom of the Opera. So she was teaching me some Phantom of the Opera, and I guess my tune was a little bit out of the bucket, because we went and did this and we were doing okay, but then she left pieces of music at home. So I'm sitting there singing, and I went, and I'm like, honey, how could you forget this music? We look like idiots. What do we get?
Of course, I could go right along singing, but he couldn't. Maybe that was the plan.
Oh yeah, we didn't do that again. Needless to
so
say,
no more couples singing, no more couples wedding singing.
No, that was one and done there.
And these are some of the lovely, wonderful stories that we have after being together for 31 years. And these are some of the lovely stories that you can bring to the couples who you are
Yes.
helping through the various ways, through the wonderful Best Friends Again coaching program. And then you have this wonderful book that you guys have both co-authored. Come on, show that book again, Jeep. Show that book again.
There it
That's
is.
it. What's
What's
forever for?
forever for?
Love, 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 love. Alrighty, so now I know that I have some people that are watching and they've been listening. We have Dr. Noopy, who's been watching from the UK. We have Vanessa Turner also, who's been tuning in. And I know that there's some others who are either going to watch it now or watch or listen, because this is also on audio. This will be available on iTunes. They want to know, where can they find you? So let us know, where can these people find you? What is your social media handle or your website?
Yes, our website is bestfriendsagain.com, and we can be found on Facebook and LinkedIn. We both have, our separate LinkedIn accounts as well as a business account. So Facebook, it's all in the website. So therefore, if you click the links, then
you'll be able
you'll
to
get there.
So
yes.
bestfriendsagain.com.
And that's why we named it that way, because when you're married, I don't want to hear, well, my best friend's my buddy from high school, or my best friend's my girlfriend that I went on vacation with. No, your best friend has to be your partner. First and foremost.
Love it. That's distilled wisdom right there. All righty. Well, we want to thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
I had a wonderful, wonderful time on this wonderful interview with our Docs Who Care show. So for those of you who are listening and you're like, woo, where can I find and listen to this interview again? Well, I have a special treat for you. So go to our yourcaringdocs.com. That's URCARINGDOCS.com. And you will see the lovely pictures of Dr. Jeep and Mrs. Vanessa Naum. And just click on the listen here. You will be directed to our wonderful audio on our iTunes, and leave a 5-star review. This was a spectacular show. Yes, you are definitely getting a lot of
Thank
reviews.
you so much.
Loving. Yes.
Thank you.
So leave a 5-star
review
for them right on our, if you are on an Apple device, definitely leave that 5-star review. And like I said, just go to their pictures right on the Your Caring Docs website, URCARINGDOCS.com. Hit the podcast link and you will be able to scroll down and find this lovely picture. So again, I want to thank you so much for jumping on. This was so wonderful, and I hope we'll be able to keep in touch and do some more things together. Here, you got 5 stars. How else can we do it but a 5 stars?
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Really appreciate
Dr.
it.
Tamara, we are so honored.
Yes.
I love how upbeat and positive you are. You're such a jewel.
Yes.
And it's such a pleasure to follow you, and even a bigger pleasure and honor to do this with you today.
Thank you so much. Thank you for gracing our wonderful podcast and our show, and for leaving such great amount of wisdom, to go through some of the good and the bad times so that we can all be best friends again.
Amen.
All righty, guys. Take care. And we see you guys next time. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.